Theo Silverton issues a frightening new threat in Coronation Street as Sarah Platt attempts to help Todd Grimshaw out of his plight, with a meeting with a familiar face leaving Theo enraged. Todd has been on the receiving end of coercive control and manipulation in his relationship with Theo, but things escalated further in recent weeks when Theo began to violently strike Todd. This has alarmed several Weatherfield residents, with Sarah being one of the people to support Todd alongside George Shuttleworth and Christina Boyd. In today's episode of the ITV soap, Sarah recalls to Christina and Summer Spellman how frightened Todd is. Theo attempts to manipulate Gary Windass into believing him, but he has no interest in listening to his side of the story. Carl Webster witnesses the conversation, and gleefully reminds Theo of his knowledge regarding Billy Mayhew's murder. Theo continues to press Gary, and makes a not-so-thinly veiled threat towards him. He also states that he never harmed his ex-wife Danielle or his children, and the mention of them gives Gary an idea. He calls Sarah and suggests that they speak with Danielle, namely trying to learn if Theo was ever as abusive with her as he is with Todd. When Sarah asks Danielle this question, she takes offense and says Sarah has some nerve to ask it. Todd and Theo arrive in the bistro as the pair talk, with Theo accurately guessing why the pair were talking. After Danielle leaves and tells Sarah not to contact her again, Theo issues her frightening threat by saying she would regret her continued prying. Sarah apologizes to Todd, who says that she has made things worse. Sarah meets with Gary, George and Christina in the Rovers to discuss the situation, with the group wishing that Theo would leave Weatherfield. They may get their wish, as Theo informs Todd that he has got the job in Belfast. He says that nothing will stop the pair from now on, but Todd appears nervous at the prospect of moving away. The rain fell in thin, relentless streaks over Weatherfield, turning the cobbles slick and shining under the dim streetlights. It was the kind of night that made everything feel heavier, every secret, every lie, every unspoken fear. And on this particular evening, the tension surrounding Coronation Street had reached a breaking point. Theo stood alone in the shadows near the Rover's return, his jaw tight, his breathing slow but deliberate. There was something different about him tonight, something colder. The kind of change people didn't notice until it was far too late. Inside the pub, laughter tried to cut through the unease. Familiar faces gathered, clinging to normality like a lifeline. But whispers had already begun to circulate. Theo had been acting strangely. Distant. Volatile. And then the door creaked open. The chatter dipped instantly. A figure stepped inside, rain dripping from their coat. For a moment, no one spoke. It was as if time itself paused to take a breath. "Thought you'd seen the last of me, did you?" Gasps rippled through the room. A familiar face, one long gone, presumed out of the picture, had returned. Their eyes scanned the pub, sharp and knowing, before landing on the one person who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Theo. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Theo hadn't expected this. Not tonight. Not ever, if he was honest with himself. His carefully constructed world, the lies he'd told, the control he'd clawed back piece by piece, was now teetering on the edge of collapse. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered as he stepped inside, his voice low but laced with venom. The returning figure didn't flinch. Instead, they smiled, a slow, unsettling smile that sent a chill through everyone watching. And yet, here I am. The tension between them was electric. Years of history, buried truths, and unfinished business crackled in the air. "People change, Theo," they continued. "But secrets? They have a funny way of coming back." Theo's fists clenched. He glanced around, noticing the curious eyes, the worried faces. He couldn't afford this. Not here. Not now. Outside, he snapped. The rain had intensified by the time they stepped back onto the street. It soaked through clothes and skin, but neither of them seemed to notice. "You've got some nerve showing up like this," Theo said, his voice rising. After everything. After everything you did, the other interrupted sharply. Don't rewrite history. Theo's expression darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know enough. Silence fell between them, broken only by the rain hitting the pavement. Then Theo leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You need to leave. Tonight. Or what? For a moment, Theo said nothing. His eyes flickered with something raw, something almost unhinged. Then it came, the threat that would soon echo across Weatherfield. Or I'll make sure you regret ever coming back, he said coldly. I mean it. I'll destroy everything you've got left. The words hung in the air, heavier than the storm clouds above. Inside the Rovers, the atmosphere had shifted completely. Conversations were hushed, nervous glances exchanged like currency. What's going on with Theo? Someone whispered. No idea, another replied. But that didn't look good. The door burst open suddenly, making several people jump. Theo stood there, drenched and furious, his presence commanding immediate silence. His eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to question him. Show's over, he said bluntly. Everyone mind their own business. But it wasn't that simple. Not anymore. Because the past had returned, and it wasn't going anywhere. Later that night, as the street emptied and the lights dimmed, Theo sat alone in his flat. The threat he'd made replayed in his mind, each time sounding more real, more inevitable. He poured himself a drink with shaking hands. They forced this, he muttered under his breath. They left me no choice. But deep down, a part of him knew the truth. This wasn't just about the past. This was about control. About fear. About the fragile illusion he'd built, and the terrifying lengths he was willing to go to protect it. Across the street, the returning face stood by the window, watching. They weren't afraid. Not anymore. Your move, Theo, they whispered quietly. And as the camera pulled back, the storm finally began to ease, but the calm it left behind felt anything but peaceful. Because in Weatherfield, threats like Theo's don't just disappear. They explode. And when they do, no one is safe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Crown ST.